Hi guys, night settles gently across the wide valley of the Nile. The last warmth of the day still lingers in the stones, even as the sky slowly turns from pale gold to deep blue. Far above, countless stars begin to appear one by one. Their quiet light reflects softly on the calm river, where the water moves with such patience that it almost seems to be resting instead of flowing. The air has cooled just enough to feel comfortable after another long day beneath the Egyptian sun. A gentle breeze carries the scent of wet reeds, river mud, fresh bread, and distant cooking fires that are slowly burning lower as families prepare for sleep. Somewhere in the darkness, a frog calls from the edge of the water. Not far away, another answers. Their voices drift across the river like slow ripples. If you stand quietly here for a while, there is very little that surprises you. The same stars rise each evening. The same river follows its familiar path. The same villages rest along its banks, their mud brick walls still holding the warmth of the afternoon. Tomorrow will look very much like today. And for most people living here, that is exactly what they hope for. Ancient Egypt is often remembered for its great pyramids, enormous temples, and powerful kings. These wonders still capture our imagination thousands of years later. Yet for almost everyone who lived in this land, life was not filled with grand events. Most people never met a king. Most never traveled very far from the place where they were born. Most lived ordinary lives shaped by the quiet rhythm of the Nile. Their world felt steady, reliable, comfortingly predictable. That predictability was not boring to them. It was safety. Every season carried familiar work. Every morning began with familiar sounds. Every evening ended beneath the same wide sky. Generation after generation, people woke before sunrise, baked bread, carried water, cared for animals, repaired tools, planted grain, harvested crops, counted baskets, recorded deliveries, and rested when darkness finally returned. The days flowed together like the river itself. There was comfort in knowing what tomorrow would ask of you. Long before the first light touched the eastern horizon, some families were already awake. The night was never completely silent. Dogs shifted in the narrow streets. Goats settled against low walls. Somewhere a sleepy donkey stamped its feet. Inside simple homes built from sun-dried mud bricks, small oil lamps flickered softly. Their flames danced gently whenever the night breeze found its way through tiny windows. The homes themselves were modest. The walls were thick enough to keep out much of the daytime heat. Flat roofs collected cooler air during the evening. Floors were packed earth, worn smooth by countless footsteps over many years. Furniture was simple. Perhaps a woven sleeping mat. A wooden stool. A low table. Clay jars lined carefully against the wall. Baskets filled with grain. A few carefully treasured possessions. Nothing more. Nothing less. Life asked little luxury. It asked reliability. The first person awake was often already thinking about bread. Grain had to be ground into flour. The heavy grinding stones waited patiently where they had rested the evening before. One stone remained still. The other moved slowly back and forth. Forward. Back. Forward. Back. The work required strength. Arms became tired. Shoulders slowly ached. Tiny clouds of flour drifted into the morning air. The sound of grinding became one of the first sounds of every day. It was so familiar that few people even noticed it anymore. Children sometimes woke to that quiet rhythm before opening their eyes. For them, it simply meant another ordinary morning had arrived. Outside, the eastern horizon slowly brightened. The stars faded one at a time. Birds began their own gentle conversations among the reeds. The Nile reflected pale shades of silver before turning golden as sunlight spread across its surface. This river was the center of everything. It gave water. It carried boats. It fed fields. It marked the seasons. It offered fish. It connected villages. Without the Nile, Egypt would simply be endless desert. With it, life became possible. The river itself rarely rushed. It moved with remarkable calm. People learned its habits over hundreds of years. They understood when the flood waters would arrive. They knew when planting should begin. They expected harvest at nearly the same time each year. Nothing about this felt mysterious. It felt dependable. A farmer did not wake each morning wondering what the river might decide. He trusted that it would continue doing what it had always done. That trust shaped nearly every part of Egyptian life. As sunlight spread across the valley, people stepped outside. Sandals brushed softly against packed earth. Neighbors greeted one another with quiet familiarity. Nobody hurried. There was no reason. The day's work would take many hours whether one rushed or not. A woman balanced a clay jar against her shoulder as she walked toward the river. Another carried two smaller jars suspended from a wooden pole. Water had to be collected every day. The trip itself became part of life's rhythm. Friends talked softly as they walked. Children followed close behind. The path had been worn smooth by countless feet over generations. Nobody needed directions. Everyone knew where it led. At the riverbank, fishermen were already preparing their small boats. The boats rested quietly among tall reeds. Their wooden hulls rocked gently against the shoreline. Fishing nets had been repaired many times. Small knots showed where careful hands had mended old tiers. Nothing was wasted if it could still serve another season. A fisherman checked each section of rope with patient fingers. He worked without haste. The fish would not disappear simply because he moved more quickly. He understood the water. He understood the currents. He understood the habits of the creatures living beneath the calm surface. Knowledge like this was rarely written down. It passed naturally from parents to children. From older hands to younger ones. From one quiet morning to the next. Nearby, farmers slowly entered their fields. The earth still held moisture from the river's annual flooding. Rich black soil spread beneath their feet. It contrasted beautifully with the pale desert that waited only a short distance away. Simple wooden plows scratched shallow lines into the ground. Oxen moved steadily. Never fast. Always patient. The animals knew this work as well as the people guiding them. Many had followed these same fields season after season. The farmer walked behind them, occasionally speaking a soft word of encouragement. Dust rose gently around his sandals. Sweat slowly gathered beneath the morning sun. The day had only begun. Already the warmth returned. Heat was one of the few things that never surprised anyone. Everyone expected it. Everyone planned around it. Heavy labor belonged mostly to the cooler hours. By midday, even the strongest workers slowed their pace. Shade became valuable. Water became precious. Rest became necessary rather than optional. Nobody argued with the sun. It always won. Back in the villages, workshops slowly filled with quiet activity. Potters shaped wet clay with steady hands. The wheel turned slowly beneath gentle pressure. Each bowl resembled the last. Each jar followed familiar patterns. People appreciated consistency. A jar did not need to be unique. It needed to hold water without leaking. That was enough. Nearby, Carpenters worked with simple tools. Wood was valuable. Every piece mattered. Mistakes wasted precious material. Careful measuring came before careful cutting. The scent of freshly worked wood mixed with dust and warm air. Hammering remained gentle rather than constant. Each strike had purpose. Across another narrow street, linen makers prepared flax fibers. The work demanded patience. Threads had to remain even. Hands moved almost automatically after years of practice. Conversation drifted quietly between workers. No one needed to speak loudly. Everyone understood the rhythm of the work. There would be time for stories later. For now, steady hands mattered more than many words. Among the busiest people in any Egyptian town were the scribes. Unlike farmers or builders, their hands remained relatively clean. Instead of carrying baskets or pushing plows, they carried brushes made from reeds. Small pallets held black and red pigments. Sheets of papyrus rested carefully beside them. The scribe's world was one of numbers, names, deliveries, and careful records. 1 basket of grain. 2 jars of oil. 5 workers present. 3 absent. Everything had its place. Everything could be counted. Order brought comfort. Writing itself became another way Egypt remained predictable. If records were accurate today, tomorrow's work became easier. If taxes were counted properly, confusion remained small. If supplies were listed carefully, everyone knew what should arrive. The quiet scratch of a reed brush across papyrus became as important as the sound of a farmer's plow. Different work. The same purpose. Keeping life steady. As the sun climbed higher, shadows shortened. The village grew quieter. People saved their energy. Even animals rested whenever possible. Dogs stretched beneath shaded walls. Cats searched for the coolest corners of courtyards. Chickens gathered beneath simple shelters. The heat wrapped itself around everything. It slowed conversation. It softened movement. The world seemed to breathe more slowly beneath the brilliant Egyptian sky. Inside many homes, meals were prepared with simple ingredients. Fresh bread. Onions. Garlic. Beans. Lentils. Dates. Figs. Sometimes fish. Occasionally meat during special occasions. The smell of baking bread drifted through narrow streets. Clay ovens radiated warmth. Smoke rose gently before disappearing into the bright afternoon air. Children waited patiently nearby. Fresh bread rarely stayed untouched for long. Its warm aroma filled entire neighborhoods. Meals were not hurried. Neither was life. People ate because work required strength. Afterward they rested briefly before returning to familiar tasks. Nothing extraordinary happened. That was precisely what made each day feel secure. There was quiet comfort in ordinary routines that had changed very little across generations. And as the afternoon slowly stretched toward evening, the village continued moving with the same gentle rhythm, carried forward by the Nile, by habit, and by the peaceful certainty that tomorrow would arrive looking much the same as today. The afternoon light slowly begins to soften. It does not happen all at once. The bright white glow of midday gently gives way to warmer shades of gold. Long shadows return little by little, stretching across narrow paths and quiet courtyards. The heavy heat is still present, but it no longer presses down with quite the same strength. People notice this change without thinking about it. For many of them, this is the most welcome part of the day. The hardest hours are passing. The work continues, but the air begins to feel kinder. A farmer wipes the dust from his forehead with the back of his hand. His sandals leave familiar prints in the dark soil beside the river. He has walked this same field so many times that he hardly looks down anymore. His feet know where the ground is firm and where it is soft after irrigation. Nothing here feels uncertain. Each row has been planted with care. Each narrow canal carries water exactly where it is needed. Small walls of packed earth guide the gentle flow from one section of the field to another. The water does not hurry. It spreads quietly across the soil before soaking downward, disappearing beneath the surface where unseen roots wait patiently. The farmer watches the water for a moment. He is not watching because he expects something surprising. He watches because this simple sight has always brought reassurance. The river has done its work once again. Nearby, another worker kneels to pull small weeds growing between young plants. The movement is slow and steady. His hands know which plants belong and which do not. Every careful pull helps the crop a little more. No one speaks very much. The soft sounds of work are enough. A breeze stirs the leaves. Birds call from the edge of the reeds. Somewhere farther away, an ox lets out a long, low sound before returning to its quiet labor. These are the sounds that fill an ordinary afternoon. No music is needed. The land already has its own rhythm. Along the river, fishermen continue checking their woven nets. Some have already returned with baskets holding silver fish that glisten softly in the sunlight. Others remain farther downstream, allowing the current to carry their small boats at an easy pace. The boats themselves seem almost alive. They rise and fall gently with every movement of the water. Wood creaks softly. Ropes tighten and loosen. The reeds brush quietly against the sides of the hull. A fisherman sits with one hand resting lightly upon an oar. He has learned not to fight the river. The Nile has its own pace. Those who work upon it learn patience very early. His father learned the same lesson. His grandfather before him. The river rewards calm hands more often than hurried ones. The day's catch is never exactly the same. Yet it is rarely so different that anyone worries. There is comfort in knowing that tomorrow will offer another chance. The Nile always returns. Its gifts may be larger one day and smaller the next, but they never disappear for long. As the afternoon continues, the workshops become lively once again. The cooler air allows people to move more comfortably. In one corner of the village, a potter sits before his wheel. The clay feels cool against his fingers despite the warm air. His foot turns the wheel with slow, practiced movements. Round and round it spins. The lump of clay begins to rise. First it is short, then taller, then wider. His hands apply only gentle pressure. Too much force would ruin the shape. Too little would leave it uneven. The balance comes from years of repetition. He no longer thinks about every movement. His hands remember. The wheel spins quietly. Children passing nearby pause for only a moment before continuing on their way. They have seen this many times before. Tomorrow they will likely see it again. One day, perhaps, one of them will learn the same craft. Many occupations in Egypt remained within the same families for generations. Skills were shared little by little. There were no thick books explaining every step. Instead, a child watched. Then helped. Then practiced. Then slowly became the teacher for someone else. Knowledge moved as naturally as the river itself. Across the lane, the scent of fresh bread fills the warm afternoon air once more. Inside a small bakery, flour rests like pale dust upon every surface. A woman shapes another loaf with practiced hands. The dough is soft and slightly warm. She presses it gently before placing it inside a clay oven already glowing with steady heat. The fire crackles quietly. Dry pieces of wood settle into glowing coals. Smoke slips upward through a narrow opening. Soon the smell begins to spread beyond the doorway. Rich, warm, comforting. Bread is one of the most familiar smells in the village. It greets people in the morning. It welcomes them home in the evening. Its scent becomes part of memory itself. Children waiting outside know exactly how long they must be patient. Not because anyone tells them. Because they have waited the same amount of time hundreds of times before. Everything has its place. Everything has its moment. Predictability is woven into even the smallest parts of daily life. Farther down the street, a donkey slowly pulls a wooden cart loaded with baskets. Its hooves strike the packed earth with quiet rhythm. Step, step, step. The driver walks beside it instead of riding. There is no need to rush. The baskets contain onions gathered earlier that morning. Tomorrow another cart may carry grain. The next day perhaps jars of oil. Trade happens steadily rather than dramatically. Small exchanges connect neighboring villages. A merchant greets familiar faces as he passes. He knows nearly everyone. He has known some since childhood. People ask about families. They ask about the condition of the river. They ask whether the roads remain clear. Conversations move gently. No one feels pressed by time. The days are long enough. Near the center of the village stands the house of a scribe. Compared with many workers, his life demands less physical strength but equal patience. He sits cross-legged with papyrus spread neatly before him. Small clay jars hold black and red ink. Each brush has been trimmed carefully. Nothing is wasted. He pauses before writing. Not because he has forgotten. Because accuracy matters. One wrong mark can change a number. One missing sign can confuse an entire record. His brush touches the papyrus. Smooth strokes appear one after another. Names. Amounts. Dates. Deliveries. Each line preserves order. The people bringing grain to the storehouse trust that their work will be counted fairly. The officials trust that supplies will be recorded correctly. Builders trust that materials will arrive when needed. A kingdom becomes predictable not only because of rivers and seasons, but because careful people quietly keep track of countless ordinary things. The scribe may never build a wall. He may never plant a field. Yet his steady hand supports all who do. As sunlight continues to soften, children begin to finish their small chores. Some have carried water. Others have gathered kindling. A few have helped feed goats or chickens. Now their responsibilities grow lighter. They wander through dusty streets together. Their feet kick softly at loose sand. They collect smooth stones. They chase one another between low mud brick houses. Their laughter rises into the warm evening air before fading just as quickly. Adults smile but continue working. Children have always played in these streets. They always will. Even this feels wonderfully predictable. Older people often sit near shaded doorways during these hours. Years of labor have left their marks upon weathered hands and careful movements. Some weave baskets from reeds. Others repair sandals. One elderly man patiently sharpens a farming tool upon a smooth stone. The scraping sound repeats again and again. Slow. Even. Comforting. He is in no hurry. The tool will be ready before morning. That is enough. He remembers many seasons. Many floods. Many harvests. The years have blended together into one long rhythm shaped by the Nile. He has seen children become parents. Parents become grandparents. Fields pass from one generation to the next. The river remains. The sunrise remains. The seasons remain. In many ways, Egypt itself seems unchanged. That steady feeling brings peace. Even illness, though never welcome, often followed familiar patterns. People recognized the signs of exhaustion after long days beneath the sun. They understood sore muscles after harvest. They knew the aches that came with age. Simple remedies made from herbs, honey, oils, and carefully prepared mixtures were passed quietly from healer to family. Rest was respected whenever possible. Shade became medicine. Cool water became comfort. No cure promised miracles. Most people simply hoped to recover enough to continue tomorrow's work. Life asked for endurance more than perfection. As evening slowly approaches, smoke begins rising from many rooftops. Families prepare the final meal of the day. Clay pots simmer quietly above small fires. The smell of onions cooking with herbs drifts through the village. Someone grinds spices with a stone pestle. Someone else pours fresh water into waiting jars. Inside each home, familiar routines unfold almost without thought. One person prepares food. Another arranges woven mats. Children gather bowls. An older family member checks the small oil lamp before darkness arrives. No one announces these tasks. Everyone simply knows them. Years of repetition have made each movement feel natural. Outside, the sky slowly deepens from gold into soft orange. The first birds begin returning to their resting places among palms and reeds. Their songs become quieter. The wind cools a little more. A pleasant feeling spreads through the village. The hardest work has ended. Bodies grow tired in satisfying ways. Hands are dusty. Faces are warm. Feet ache gently after many hours of standing. Yet there is comfort in honest exhaustion. The day has unfolded exactly as expected. The fields have been tended. The nets have been cast. The bread has been baked. The records have been written. The tools have been repaired. Tomorrow many of these same tasks will begin again. No one complains that each day resembles the last. Sameness is a quiet promise. It means the river still flows. It means the harvest still grows. It means families still gather together beneath familiar roofs as evening settles softly across the land. Above them, the first stars begin to appear once more, just as they did the night before, waiting patiently over the calm waters of the Nile. The first stars become brighter as the last colors of the evening slowly disappear beyond the western horizon. One by one, the sounds of labor fade into the quiet. The scraping of tools becomes less frequent. The footsteps along dusty paths grow fewer. The voices of merchants drift away as they close the simple coverings over their goods and begin the walk home. The village does not become silent all at once. It settles. Very slowly. Very gently. Like fine sand resting after the wind has passed. The air feels different now. The heat stored inside the mud-brick walls begins to escape little by little. Warmth still rises from the ground beneath bare feet and worn sandals, but the coolness arriving from the river grows stronger with every passing hour. Many people welcome this time more than any other. The day has asked enough from their bodies. Now it asks only that they rest. Small oil lamps glow inside homes across the village. Their light is soft and golden. It reaches only a short distance before fading into gentle shadows. The walls seem almost alive as the tiny flames move with every quiet breath of air. There are no bright lights here. No great blaze that pushes away the darkness. Instead, each family keeps a little circle of warmth around itself. Beyond those circles, the night belongs to the stars. A family gathers on woven mats placed upon the floor. The evening meal is simple. Fresh bread still holds a little warmth from the oven. A bowl of lentils has been cooked until soft. There are onions, dates, and perhaps a little fish caught earlier in the day. The food is familiar. It has been familiar for many years. No one expects every meal to be different. There is comfort in recognizing every taste. The first bite of warm bread feels exactly as it did yesterday. The cool water tastes exactly as it did last week. The meal fills tired bodies without asking for much attention. People eat slowly. There is no hurry now. The work has already been done. Children speak quietly about small moments from the day. One saw a large bird standing among the reeds. Another found a smooth stone beside the river. Someone laughs softly as a younger child tries to describe a fish that somehow became much larger in the telling than it truly was. The older members of the family smile. Stories become slightly larger every generation. Yet the evenings themselves remain almost unchanged. After the meal, bowls are washed carefully with water that must never be wasted. Clay jars are covered once more. The small fire is allowed to grow weaker. Ash settles over glowing coals. The smell of smoke lingers gently in the night air. Outside, neighbors sit near their doorways. Some weave baskets beneath the fading light. Others simply rest. After many hours beneath the sun, even sitting quietly feels like meaningful work. Hands that spent the day lifting baskets now rest upon tired knees. Feet that crossed fields since sunrise finally become still. Shoulders slowly relax. No one measures the value of these peaceful moments. Yet they become some of the most important parts of the day. Far above, the stars continue their slow journey across the sky. Ancient Egyptians watched them often. Not with hurried curiosity. Not searching for entertainment. The stars were companions. They appeared faithfully. Night after night. Season after season. Many people could recognize familiar patterns overhead. The sky itself became another kind of calendar. Another quiet promise that the world remained in order. For a child lying upon a woven mat on the roof of a family home, those stars must have seemed endless. The roof is cooler than the rooms below. Many families choose to sleep there whenever the weather allows. A light breeze moves gently across the open space. The smell of the river drifts through the darkness. Somewhere nearby, reeds whisper together whenever the wind passes among them. The child listens. A donkey calls in the distance. A dog answers once before becoming quiet again. Then comes the soft chorus of insects hidden among the grasses. These sounds do not disturb sleep. They invite it. Every night carries the same gentle orchestra. There is comfort in hearing familiar voices from the natural world. Across the village, an elderly woman carefully folds a linen cloth before placing it inside a wooden chest. The cloth has been repaired many times. Small stitches run neatly across worn places. Nothing useful is thrown away without reason. Time itself seems woven into every object. A clay bowl may have served 3 generations. A wooden stool may have belonged to a grandfather before becoming the seat of his grandson. The same grinding stone has shaped flour through countless harvests. These ordinary possessions carry quiet memories. Not because they are beautiful. Because they remain dependable. Dependability is one of the greatest treasures in this world. Even the houses themselves seem to grow together with the families who live inside them. A wall may be repaired after heavy rain. Another room may be added when children become adults. The roof receives fresh mud after cracks appear. Year after year, careful hands maintain what already exists. The village changes so slowly that someone returning after several seasons away would still recognize almost every corner. The same narrow paths. The same shaded courtyards. The same palm trees reaching toward the sky. The same wells. The same ovens. The same familiar faces, only a little older. Not every day is easy. There are seasons when the harvest is smaller. Years when sickness spreads more widely. Days when hard labor feels almost endless beneath the relentless summer sun. Ancient Egyptians knew hardship well. They understood fatigue. Their backs ached after lifting stones. Their hands cracked from working with water and mud. Their feet became rough after countless journeys across fields and village roads. Yet hardship itself often followed familiar patterns. The difficult seasons arrived. Then they passed. The flood returned. The crops grew again. The cycle continued. This rhythm helped people endure. A difficult day felt easier when it belonged to a predictable world. Near the edge of the village, a watchman walks slowly along the outer path. His work begins as many others end. He carries a simple staff. His sandals press softly into the cool earth. He pauses now and then, listening to the sounds beyond the houses. There is little to hear. Perhaps the rustle of a small animal moving through dry grass. Perhaps the gentle splash of water against the riverbank. Perhaps only the wind. His task is quiet. Hours pass without excitement. That is exactly how he hopes the night will remain. Peace is easiest to protect when little changes. Farther along the Nile, a boat has been tied securely beside a cluster of reeds. The fisherman who owns it has already gone home. The boat rises and falls gently with every movement of the river. Moonlight touches its worn wooden sides. Its rope creaks softly against the post holding it in place. Tomorrow, before sunrise, someone will untie that same rope. The boat will return to the water. The nets will be lowered once again. The river will offer whatever it chooses. Tonight, however, even the boat rests. The Nile itself never truly sleeps. Its waters continue their patient journey toward the distant sea. Yet at night it seems quieter somehow. More thoughtful. The reflections of stars stretch across its surface like scattered pieces of silver. Occasionally a fish disturbs the water with a single ripple. The circles spread outward. Then disappear. The surface becomes smooth once more. Many people believe that history is made only by extraordinary moments. By great victories. By famous rulers. By monuments carved from stone. Yet if one were to spend a quiet evening here, among ordinary families beside the Nile, another truth slowly becomes clear. History is also built from repetition. From countless evenings exactly like this one. A mother folding linen. A father repairing a fishing net. A child falling asleep while listening to insects outside. A baker preparing flour for tomorrow morning. A scribe placing his brushes carefully beside rolled sheets of papyrus before extinguishing his lamp. These moments rarely appear in carved inscriptions. No temple walls celebrate them. Yet together they create the steady heartbeat of an entire civilization. It is easy to imagine the builders of great temples beginning each day with simple breakfasts. The men who carved beautiful statues once stood in line waiting for bread. The skilled artists who painted colorful walls returned each evening to ordinary homes. Even those who helped create wonders still lived inside the same dependable rhythm as everyone else. They rose with the sun. They worked until tired. They shared meals. They rested beneath the stars. Their greatness grew from ordinary days repeated patiently over many years. Perhaps this is one reason Egypt remained so steady for such a long time. The land itself encouraged regular habits. The river rewarded careful planning. Families passed knowledge gently from one generation to the next without needing to change very much. Children learned not only skills, but timing. When to plant. When to harvest. When to repair tools. When to rest during the hottest hours. When to trust that tomorrow would arrive carrying familiar work. The passing seasons became teachers. Each year quietly reminded everyone that patience often mattered more than speed. No one could hurry the flood. No one could command the grain to grow overnight. Waiting was simply part of living. As the night grows deeper, many lamps have already gone dark. The village seems wrapped in soft shadow. Only a few points of golden light remain where someone finishes a last small task before sleep. A woman quietly mends a tear in a linen garment. Each stitch is small, even, careful. The work is almost invisible once completed. Nearby, an old man whispers a familiar story to a grandchild whose eyes grow heavier with every sentence. Neither notices when the story slowly becomes quieter than the night itself. The child has already drifted into sleep. Above them, the stars continue their patient journey. The warm breeze moves gently across the rooftops. The river flows as it always has. And without anyone needing to announce it, another ordinary day in ancient Egypt slowly gives way to another peaceful night, where the promise of tomorrow feels as certain as the quiet current of the Nile beneath the endless sky. Before the first hint of dawn appears, the world is wrapped in its deepest quiet. The stars still cover the sky with calm, steady light. The moon, if it is present, hangs low above the western horizon, slowly preparing to leave the night behind. The Nile reflects these pale lights with such stillness that the river seems almost like polished stone. For a little while, everything rests. The fields are empty. The workshops are dark. The ovens are cool. Even the village dogs sleep with their noses tucked beneath their tails. Only the gentle sounds of the night remain. A breeze moves softly through the date palms. Reeds along the riverbank brush against one another with a quiet whisper. Somewhere far across the water, a night bird calls once before falling silent again. It is a peaceful hour. An hour that belongs to almost no one. Yet it arrives every single day. Ancient Egypt was filled with routines so dependable that even the silence seemed to keep a schedule. Long before clocks existed, people understood the passing of time through light, temperature, and sound. They did not need numbers to know that morning was approaching. The air itself told them. The coolness became sharper just before dawn. The stars slowly lost some of their brightness. The eastern horizon gained the faintest touch of gray. Without anyone giving a signal, life began to wake. Inside one small home, a woman opens her eyes before the rest of her family. She lies still for a moment. The woven mat beneath her has become familiar through many years of use. Above her, the flat roof remains quiet. She listens. There is the faint rustle of someone turning over in sleep. A donkey shifts outside. The breeze slips through a small opening in the wall. The village has not yet awakened, but it soon will. She rises without making unnecessary noise. The movements are practiced. She has followed this same pattern for so many mornings that her body remembers each step before her mind does. An oil lamp is lit. Its tiny flame pushes back the darkness only a little. That is enough. She reaches for grain stored carefully in large clay jars. The grain is precious. Every handful represents months of work beneath the hot Egyptian sun. Nothing is taken carelessly. She measures what the family needs for the day. No more. No less. Nearby rests the grinding stone. It has been part of this household longer than some of the children have been alive. Its smooth surface tells the story of countless mornings exactly like this one. She begins to grind the grain. Forward. Back. Forward. Back. The sound is soft. Steady. Comforting. Soon another home joins in. Then another. Then another. Before sunrise, the quiet rhythm of grinding stones spreads gently across the village. No one planned this chorus. It simply happens. Every morning. Every season. Every year. Children often wake to these sounds before they fully open their eyes. For them, the scraping of stone against stone is as familiar as the beating of their own hearts. It means breakfast is coming. It means another ordinary day has arrived. It means life is continuing exactly as it should. Outside, the eastern sky slowly changes from gray to pale blue. A narrow band of soft orange appears above the distant desert. The palm trees become dark shapes against the growing light. Birds begin stirring among the branches. One sings. Another answers. Soon the reeds along the Nile are alive with gentle birdsong. It is never loud. It rises gradually, as though the morning itself is stretching after a long night's sleep. The first rays of sunlight touch the tops of the temples long before they reach the narrow streets below. Stone warms slowly. Mud brick walls begin gathering heat for another day. The coolness of the night quietly retreats. A fisherman steps from his home carrying a neatly folded net across one shoulder. His sandals leave fresh marks in the dust. He nods politely to another man carrying a bundle of reeds. Neither stops to speak for long. There will be time for conversation later. Morning is for beginning. Each person already knows what the day requires. The fisherman walks toward the river. The path bends gently between homes before opening onto the broad water. Mist hangs low above the Nile. It is thin enough to see through, yet thick enough to soften the edges of everything beyond it. The boats appear almost dreamlike. Their reflections blend quietly into the calm surface below. He unties the rope securing his small boat. The knot comes free with practiced ease. One gentle push sends the boat gliding away from the bank. The water accepts it without resistance. There is almost no sound beyond the faint splash of the oar. The river has carried boats like this for countless generations. Every morning it welcomes them once again. Along another path, farmers gather beside their fields. They carry simple wooden tools polished smooth by years of use. Nothing about these tools is decorative. Every handle has been shaped by hard-working hands. Tiny repairs show where cracks have been bound with leather or strengthened with fresh wood. A tool that still works is a tool worth keeping. The farmers pause for a moment, looking over their fields in the gentle morning light. Young plants catch tiny drops of moisture. The dark soil still feels cool beneath their feet. Soon the sun will change that. Soon the air will grow heavy. For now, however, the morning offers its brief gift of comfort. Work begins. An ox lowers its head as the wooden yoke settles into place. The animal starts forward with slow determination. The plow follows behind. Fresh lines appear across the soil. The farmer watches carefully. Each furrow should be straight. Straight rows make every later task easier. Seeds can be planted evenly. Water can flow smoothly. Harvest becomes more orderly. Even something as simple as drawing a line across the earth reflects the Egyptian love of careful routine. Nearby, another worker carries water using 2 clay jars suspended from a wooden pole balanced across his shoulders. The jars sway gently with every step. He walks carefully. A stumble would waste precious water. The journey is slow, but it is never hurried. There is wisdom in moving steadily. The river is generous, yet reaching it still requires effort. Every drop carried back to the fields represents patient labor. Children sometimes help with smaller jars. Their steps are shorter. Their loads are lighter. They learn gradually. No one expects them to carry the work of adults. Instead, they watch. They imitate. They become stronger little by little. In ancient Egypt, childhood often meant learning through quiet participation rather than formal instruction. A young girl watches her mother knead dough. Soon she is allowed to shape a small loaf herself. A boy follows his father into the fields. At first he simply observes. Later he carries tools. Eventually he guides the ox. Years pass almost unnoticed. Skills settle naturally into capable hands. Knowledge moves through families as gently as the Nile flows through the valley. Not far away, the village baker is already busy. The oven glows with fresh heat. Dry fuel crackles softly beneath clay walls blackened by years of smoke. The baker moves confidently between sacks of flour, bowls of dough, and rising loaves waiting for their turn inside the oven. His hands rarely stop moving. Dust clings to his arms. Flour settles into the lines of his skin. The smell surrounding him is warm and rich. Fresh bread is more than food. It is reassurance. As long as bread is baking, life feels steady. The first loaves emerge golden and fragrant. Steam rises into the cool morning air. A nearby child inhales deeply without even realizing it. This scent has welcomed every morning since long before the child was born. Across the village, smoke begins curling upward from dozens of small ovens. From a distance, the rising columns blend together into a soft gray veil above the rooftops. Each thin trail of smoke marks another household beginning another familiar day. There is something deeply comforting about this shared rhythm. No signal announces breakfast. No command tells people when to light their fires. The entire village simply knows. Their routines have become woven together through generations of living side by side. Near the edge of town, a potter steps into his workshop. Yesterday's finished jars stand neatly arranged along one wall. Today's clay waits beneath damp cloths to keep it workable. He lifts one piece into his hands. It feels cool despite the warming air. Before sitting at the wheel, he pauses for just a moment. He looks outside. The sunlight has now reached the tops of the nearby palms. The morning has fully arrived. Another ordinary day has begun. Exactly as expected. Exactly as hoped. There is quiet satisfaction in that certainty. For many civilizations, uncertainty arrived often. Floods came without warning. Rain failed unexpectedly. Harvests changed from year to year. Ancient Egypt experienced challenges of its own, but the dependable rhythm of the Nile gave people something precious. It gave them confidence that careful planning was worthwhile. When the river flooded, people prepared. When it receded, they planted. When crops ripened, they harvested. The sequence remained familiar enough that entire communities organized their lives around it. This predictability shaped more than farming. It shaped thought itself. It encouraged patience. It rewarded preparation. It reminded people that the greatest rewards often came not from sudden action, but from steady work repeated over many seasons. As the morning grows brighter, more voices fill the streets. Neighbors greet one another. Merchants arrange baskets outside their homes. Goats wander slowly through narrow lanes. A cat stretches lazily in a patch of early sunlight before settling again atop a warm stone. Nothing extraordinary has happened. Nothing needed to happen. The comfort of ancient Egypt did not come from constant excitement. It came from knowing that the bread would bake, the river would flow, the fields would grow, and the people through thousands of quiet routines shared together would once again carry another peaceful day from sunrise toward sunset. The sun continues its slow climb above the eastern horizon. Its light spreads gently across the Nile, turning the calm water from pale silver into soft gold. The morning breeze still lingers, carrying with it the cool scent of wet earth and fresh reeds, but everyone knows it will not remain for long. Soon the warmth will return. It always does. That certainty shapes the pace of the morning. People begin their most demanding work while the air is still kind. There is no need for anyone to announce this. The land itself has taught the lesson for countless generations. Those who ignore the morning lose their strength by noon. Those who rise with the first light find that the day seems a little gentler. Along the riverbank, narrow footpaths become busy. Not crowded. Simply alive. Women balance smooth clay jars upon their heads with remarkable ease. Their steps are measured and graceful, the jars remaining almost perfectly still despite the uneven ground beneath their feet. A young girl follows behind her mother carrying a much smaller vessel. She walks carefully. Sometimes she looks down at her feet. Sometimes she watches the older women ahead of her. Little by little, she is learning. No lesson is spoken aloud. The path itself is the teacher. One day she will carry a larger jar. Years after that, another child may follow behind her in exactly the same way. The river has watched this quiet procession for centuries. It never seems impatient. The Nile simply waits. Its broad surface reflects the sky above with calm confidence. Small fish break the water now and then, leaving circles that slowly widen before disappearing. Tall papyrus plants sway gently where the current is slow. Dragonflies hover just above the reeds, their delicate wings catching the morning light for only an instant before they vanish again. Everything here moves without hurry. Even the birds seem to understand the rhythm of the river. White water birds stand perfectly still at the edge of the shallows. They wait with endless patience. Then, in one smooth motion, a beak slips beneath the surface. A fish is caught. The bird grows still once more. There is no wasted movement. Patience is rewarded again. Not far away, farmers continue their work in fields darkened by the rich soil left behind after the annual flood. The earth beneath their sandals is soft enough to accept seeds yet firm enough to support their weight. One man kneels beside a young crop, gently pressing loose soil around the base of each plant. His fingers move carefully. Every plant matters. A healthy harvest is not created in a single day. It grows from hundreds of small acts repeated over many months. He knows this. His father knew it. His grandfather knew it before him. Knowledge in Egypt often felt less like discovering something new and more like remembering what the land had always been teaching. Nearby, another worker repairs a small irrigation channel. During the flood season, the Nile spreads generously across the valley, but after the waters retreat, careful hands guide what remains. The farmer uses a simple wooden tool to strengthen the low banks of packed mud. A small leak today could mean dry soil tomorrow. He presses the damp earth firmly into place. The water responds immediately. Instead of slipping away, it follows the narrow path prepared for it. The tiny stream continues quietly toward the waiting crops. It is satisfying work. Not because it is easy. Because it brings order. Order allows life to continue smoothly. Much of ancient Egypt depended upon thousands of moments exactly like this. No king could personally guide every drop of water. No official could stand beside every field. Instead, ordinary people quietly cared for ordinary tasks. Together, those tasks supported an entire civilization. In another part of the village, the steady tapping of stone echoes from a small workshop. A stonemason sits cross-legged beside several unfinished pieces of limestone. The blocks are not enormous. These are not stones destined for great temples. Instead, they may become grinding surfaces, household tools, or simple building materials. The craftsman lifts a hammer made from harder stone. Its surface is smooth from years of use. He studies the piece before him. Then he strikes. Tap. 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 Each blow is controlled. Too much force could split the stone. Too little would accomplish nothing. The rhythm remains calm. The sound blends naturally with the voices of neighbors and the distant calls of birds. Across the lane, another craftsman works with wood. Timber is valuable in Egypt. Large trees are not common along the Nile Valley. Every piece must be used wisely. A carpenter runs his fingers along the grain before making a careful cut. The scent of fresh wood drifts into the morning air. Tiny curls fall to the floor beneath his feet. He pauses often. Not from uncertainty. From habit. Each measurement deserves attention. Each cut should last for many years. Nearby rests a stool he completed several seasons ago. Its legs remain steady. Its joints are still tight. The family who owns it likely thinks very little about it now. And perhaps that is the highest compliment a craftsman can receive. When something continues serving quietly year after year, people forget the effort that created it. Dependability becomes invisible. Yet it surrounds them every day. The same could be said for the scribes. Inside a shaded room, one scribe carefully unrolls a sheet of papyrus. The morning light enters through a narrow opening high in the wall. It is enough to illuminate his work without bringing too much heat inside. His brush rests lightly between his fingers. Nearby lie yesterday's records, tied neatly with linen cord. There is comfort in neatness. Each document has its place. Each number has meaning. He begins writing. A delivery of grain. A list of workers. The amount of flax brought from one village. The quantity of fish stored for later use. The writing flows steadily. No flourish. No unnecessary decoration. Simply careful marks preserving information that others will depend upon. The scribe rarely receives applause. Few people watch him work. His greatest success is that everything continues smoothly because his records are accurate. Like the farmer repairing a canal or the potter shaping a jar, he helps maintain the quiet order that defines daily life. Outside, the village grows warmer. The coolness of dawn has nearly disappeared. Children who finish their morning chores gather beneath the shade of a sycamore tree. Some braid reeds together. Others shape little figures from damp river mud. Their games are simple. Their imaginations do the rest. A stick becomes a boat. A stone becomes a temple. A line drawn in the dust becomes the Nile itself. One child carefully arranges tiny pebbles into neat rows, copying the planted fields he has seen since infancy. Even play reflects the world around them. Adults smile as they pass. There is no need to interrupt. The children are learning simply by living. An elderly woman sits nearby weaving a basket. Her fingers move with remarkable certainty despite the passing years. She barely looks at the reeds in her hands. She has woven so many baskets that each movement follows naturally from the one before it. The basket slowly grows upward. Round and even. Strong enough to carry grain. Light enough to lift with ease. She pauses only to moisten another reed before continuing. The work requires patience rather than strength. She enjoys the quiet. From where she sits, she can hear many familiar sounds blending together. The distant tapping of stone. The low voices of neighbors. The soft creaking of a cart. The splash of water against the riverbank. The gentle rustle of palm leaves overhead. Each sound has its place. Remove one, and the morning would feel strangely incomplete. Together they create the peaceful music of ordinary Egyptian life. As the sun climbs higher, shadows become shorter. People begin adjusting their pace almost without thinking. The fastest work has already been done. Now movements become slower. Measured. Deliberate. No one argues with the growing heat. The body understands what the mind has known for generations. Energy must be saved. A farmer straightens his back and stretches tired shoulders. Sweat darkens the linen wrapped around his waist. He walks toward a small patch of shade beside an acacia tree. Another worker joins him carrying a clay jug cooled by damp cloth wrapped around its sides. They drink slowly. Cool water slips down dry throats. For a few moments neither man speaks. Words are unnecessary. The silence itself feels refreshing. After resting, they return to their work. There is satisfaction in completing each task before the hottest hours arrive. This rhythm repeats not only every day but almost every year. It is so familiar that few people stop to admire it. Predictability has become ordinary. And because it is ordinary, it becomes almost invisible. Yet this quiet certainty shapes nearly every decision. People know when to wake. They know when to work. They know when to rest. They know when bread should be baked. When boats should leave the shore. When animals should be watered. When grain should be stored. Life is not perfectly controlled. No life ever is. But it follows patterns that have proven themselves through countless seasons. Perhaps that is why the people of ancient Egypt often seemed remarkably patient. They understood that some things cannot be hurried. The sun rises at its own pace. The Nile follows its own course. Seeds grow in their own time. Children become adults little by little. Mud bricks dry only after many warm days. Fresh bread cannot be rushed from dough to oven before it is ready. The world itself teaches patience to anyone willing to notice. By the time the sun stands high above the valley, the village settles into a quieter rhythm. The busiest hours have passed. The ovens still hold warmth. The fields shimmer beneath the bright light. Boats drift lazily upon the river. Somewhere, a scribe finishes another careful line of writing. Somewhere else, a potter lifts a newly formed jar into the sunlight to dry. And over it all, the Nile continues its calm and faithful journey, carrying with it not only water, but the gentle, predictable rhythm that has shaped the lives of ordinary Egyptians for generation after generation. By the middle of the day, the valley grows quiet in a different way. It is not the peaceful silence that comes before dawn, nor the gentle stillness of the evening after work is finished. This is the quiet brought by the sun itself. The light is bright and unwavering. The sky stretches above the land without a single cloud to soften it. The air shimmers over the fields, and distant palm trees seem to waver gently in the heat. Even the desert beyond the green ribbon of the Nile appears to be resting beneath the weight of the afternoon. People have learned to respect these hours. There is no victory in fighting the midday sun. The strongest farmer cannot outwork the heat. The most determined builder cannot ignore it forever. Generation after generation, people have discovered that wisdom often means slowing down. So the village changes its rhythm. Not because anyone commands it. Because the land quietly asks for it. Along the edge of a field, a group of workers sits beneath the broad shade of a sycamore fig. The tree has stood there longer than many of them have been alive. Its roots reach deeply into the moist ground. Its branches spread wide, offering a cool place where tired bodies can recover. The men remove their simple sandals and brush dust from their feet. Their toes sink into the cooler earth beneath the tree. Someone passes around a clay jar filled with water drawn from the river earlier that morning. The outside of the jar is damp. As the moisture slowly evaporates, it cools the water inside. The first drink is long and unhurried. No one rushes to speak. The water itself deserves attention. It washes away the dryness left by hours beneath the sun. Nearby, another worker unwraps a small bundle of bread from a linen cloth. The loaf is firm now, having cooled since dawn. He tears it into pieces with practiced hands. There are a few onions. Some dried dates. Perhaps a small piece of salted fish prepared several days earlier. The meal is simple. It has been simple for as long as anyone remembers. Yet it is enough. Enough to quiet hunger. Enough to restore strength. Enough to carry them through the afternoon. As they eat, conversation drifts gently from one person to another. No one raises a voice. The heat itself encourages quiet speech. They talk about the condition of the irrigation channels. They wonder whether the coming flood will be generous. Someone mentions that a neighbor's donkey has become old and stubborn. Another remembers a harvest from many years ago when the grain stood almost to his waist. The stories are not dramatic. They do not need to be. They are the kind of conversations that grow naturally between people who have shared many seasons together. Each story has likely been told before. No one seems to mind. Familiar stories become comfortable companions. Across the village, many workshops slow their pace. The potter covers fresh clay with damp cloth so it will not dry too quickly. The carpenter sets down his tools for a while. The blacksmith allows the fire to burn lower until the afternoon cools a little. The village itself seems to take a slow breath. Even the animals understand. Goats gather beside shaded walls. Dogs stretch beneath wooden carts. Cats curl into narrow patches of cool earth where the sunlight cannot reach them. Donkeys lower their heads and stand almost perfectly still, conserving their energy. Only the flies remain busy, drifting lazily through the warm air before being brushed away with patient hands. The Nile, however, continues without pause. Its steady current ignores the heat. The water glides south to north just as it always has. Boats move more slowly now. Some fishermen have pulled their small vessels into the shade of overhanging reeds. Others allow the gentle current to carry them while they mend torn sections of their nets. One elderly fisherman sits cross-legged inside his boat. The net rests across his knees like a great woven blanket. His fingers move through the cords one knot at a time. Here a strand has broken. There another has begun to fray. He repairs each place carefully. A hurried knot today might fail tomorrow. A careful knot may last another season. He has learned this lesson many times. His hands are weathered. The skin is rough from years of rope, water, and sunlight. Yet his movements remain delicate. there is almost a kindness in the way he handles the worn fibers. The net has served him well. It deserves patient care. A young boy sits nearby watching every movement. He asks very few questions. Instead, he watches. The old fisherman occasionally nods toward a particular knot. The boy copies it. His first attempt is uneven. The second is better. The third begins to resemble the work of experienced hands. No long explanation is needed. Learning often happens through quiet observation. Many skills in ancient Egypt are passed from one generation to another in exactly this way. Little by little. Morning after morning. Season after season. Elsewhere, a woman sits inside the coolest room of her home spinning flax into fine thread. The spindle turns slowly between her fingers. The fibers twist together almost magically, becoming stronger as they become thinner. Her eyes remain focused. Her hands never hurry. She has repeated this motion so many thousands of times that it feels almost like breathing. Beside her sits a basket filled with finished thread. Another waits empty. By the end of the afternoon, the second basket will no longer be empty. Not because she works quickly. Because she works steadily. Steady effort has a quiet power. It rarely draws attention. Yet over many days, it fills baskets, stores grain, builds homes, and clothes families. Children wander in and out of the room from time to time. One pauses to watch the spindle turning. Another reaches toward the basket before being gently reminded that the thread must remain clean. The reminder is soft. There is no anger. Children are expected to learn gradually. They are not expected to know everything immediately. Outside, the sunlight brightens the pale walls of the houses until they almost glow. The thick mud bricks perform one of their most important tasks during these hours. They keep the inside of the homes cooler than the blazing streets outside. The builders who shaped these bricks long ago understood the climate well. Their knowledge did not come from books filled with theories. It came from living here. From paying attention. From noticing which walls remained cool. Which roofs stayed dry after rare rains. Which houses aged gracefully beneath years of sun. Every generation inherited not only buildings but also practical wisdom. That wisdom became another kind of predictability. People trusted methods that had served their grandparents. There was little desire to change what already worked well. In the distance, beyond the green fields, the desert waits in complete stillness. Its sandy hills seem almost endless beneath the brilliant sky. Very few people choose to travel there during the hottest part of the day. The desert demands respect. It offers little shade, little water, little forgiveness. Compared to that wide, empty landscape, the Nile Valley feels almost like another world. Green crops, flowing water, birdsong, palm trees, mud brick villages. The contrast is so great that the people living here are constantly reminded of the river's importance. Every glance toward the desert quietly reinforces the same lesson. Life depends upon the Nile. The river makes everything else possible. As the afternoon slowly continues, a pair of builders works on repairing a small section of a village wall. The old bricks have begun to crumble after many years. New bricks, shaped from mud mixed with straw and dried beneath the sun, wait nearby. One man spreads wet mortar. The other carefully presses each brick into place. Neither speaks very much. The work requires attention. Each brick should sit level with the next. A crooked wall today becomes a weak wall tomorrow. They pause now and then to check their work from a short distance. The wall grows slowly. There is no sign of frustration that it is not finished quickly. No one expects a sturdy wall to appear in an afternoon. Good work has its own pace. The same is true throughout the village. The baker cannot rush the rising dough. The potter cannot hurry drying clay. The weaver cannot force thread to untangle itself. The scribe cannot skip careful counting. Each task asks for patience. Each reward comes in its proper time. Perhaps this is why so much of Egyptian life feels peaceful when imagined from far away. Not because life was easy. It often was not. People became tired. They suffered illness. They worried about harvests and families. Their backs ached. Their hands became calloused. Their feet carried them over endless miles of fields and riverbanks. Yet within all of that labor lived an extraordinary steadiness. Every sunrise brought familiar responsibilities. Every season brought familiar work. Every evening offered familiar rest. The rhythm itself became a source of comfort. As the sun begins, almost imperceptibly, to move beyond its highest point, the shadows beneath the trees grow just a little longer. A breeze returns from the direction of the river. It is faint. Barely enough to stir the leaves. Yet everyone notices. The hottest hours are slowly beginning to pass. Workers rise from the shade one by one. Sandals are slipped back onto dusty feet. Water jars are lifted. Tools are gathered. Without fanfare, without urgency, the village gently awakens once more, ready to continue another ordinary afternoon beneath the faithful sun, beside the patient Nile, where one quiet day blends almost seamlessly into the next. The afternoon unfolds so gradually that it is difficult to notice where 1 hour ends and the next begins. The sunlight is still warm, but its sharpness has softened just enough that people begin moving more freely once again. A light breeze travels along the Nile, stirring the tops of the papyrus reeds and carrying the cool scent of river water through the fields. Workers return to the tasks they left behind before the hottest part of the day. No trumpet calls them. No bell rings across the village. The rhythm lives inside them now. Their bodies know the hour as surely as they know the path to the river. A farmer picks up his wooden hoe where he placed it beneath a tree. The handle is smooth from years of use. His father once held this same tool. Before that, it belonged to his grandfather. The wood has darkened where countless hands have gripped it through many seasons. Small marks remain where tiny repairs were made long ago. Each repair tells a quiet story. Not of disaster. Simply of careful attention. When something is useful, it is cared for. When something is dependable, it becomes almost like a member of the family. He walks back into the field. The grain moves gently in the breeze. Each stalk bends together, then slowly stands upright again. Watching the crop from a distance is almost like watching the surface of the river itself. Nothing remains completely still. Yet nothing moves in haste. The farmer pauses before beginning again. He looks across the field toward the Nile. The water glimmers beneath the afternoon sun. He has seen this view nearly every day of his life. Perhaps, because it is so familiar, he no longer thinks of it as beautiful. It is simply home. Beauty often hides inside what becomes ordinary. Along one of the irrigation canals, two young brothers work together. One removes small clumps of reeds growing where they do not belong. The other uses a flat wooden board to strengthen the sides of the canal. Neither boy works perfectly. Now and then a little water escapes through a weak place in the bank. The older brother notices. Without complaint, he kneels and presses fresh mud into the gap. The younger watches carefully. Next time, he will remember. This is how nearly every craft begins. Not with perfection. With repetition. Mistakes are not unusual. They are expected. Each season gives another chance to improve. Their father works only a short distance away. He does not interrupt often. He trusts that the boys will learn as he once learned. By doing. By watching. By returning tomorrow. The afternoon light reflects from countless tiny channels that spread across the fields. These narrow waterways may seem simple, but they represent generations of observation. People have watched the Nile closely for hundreds of years. They have noticed how water flows. Where it gathers. Where it disappears. Where the soil remains rich. Where it dries too quickly. Each generation adds a little understanding. Very little changes all at once. Instead, knowledge settles gently into daily life, almost unnoticed. A canal is widened by the length of a hand. A small wall is raised slightly higher. A new path is worn beside an old one. The changes are modest. Yet over many lifetimes they shape an entire landscape. In another corner of the village, the smell of drying linen drifts through the warm air. Long pieces of woven cloth hang from simple wooden frames. The breeze moves them gently. The fabric ripples like quiet waves. Nearby, a woman examines each piece carefully. She runs her fingertips across the surface. Any loose thread is tucked neatly into place. She smiles with quiet satisfaction. The cloth is even. Strong. Ready for use. It may become a tunic worn by a farmer. A garment for a child. A wrapping for precious belongings. Or perhaps a simple cloth covering a basket of bread. No one knows exactly where it will go. Its purpose matters less than its usefulness. Useful things are deeply valued here. Nothing exists merely for appearance. Almost everything has work to do. A basket carries grain. A jar stores water. A mat provides rest. A stool supports tired legs. A boat crosses the river. Even the smallest reed rope has a purpose. This practical way of living shapes people's thoughts. Objects are companions in daily work. They earn respect through service. The same idea can be seen inside the village storehouses. Large clay jars stand in neat rows. Each contains something important. Barley. Emmerweed. Beans. Lentils. Dried figs. Carefully measured oil. The jars themselves are nearly identical. Each has been shaped with quiet consistency. Their rounded sides catch the soft afternoon light. Some bear small marks identifying their contents. Others are sealed with simple clay stoppers. Inside the cool storehouse, the air feels noticeably different from outside. Thick walls protect the supplies from the harshest heat. A scribe enters carrying his writing pallet. He greets the keeper of the storehouse with a small nod. No elaborate conversation follows. Both understand today's task. One counts. The other records. A basket is lifted. Its contents are checked. The number is written carefully. Another basket follows. Then another. The process continues patiently. No movement is wasted. Accuracy is more important than speed. If a mistake is made today, someone may discover it months later. Carefulness protects everyone. As the scribe writes, tiny drops of ink soak gently into the papyrus. The black lines appear crisp against the pale surface. Each mark is small. Yet together they preserve the memory of the harvest. Long after today's workers have returned home, these records will remain. quiet writing becomes another way of creating stability. Not far from the storehouse, a builder works alone repairing the flat roof of a modest house. He carries fresh mud mixed with chopped straw in a woven basket. One handful at a time, he spreads the mixture across the roof's surface. The work is repetitive. Smooth. Press. Spread. Smooth again. The sun slowly dries each section behind him. These roofs require attention every year. Small cracks appear naturally. If ignored, they become larger. If repaired early, they disappear almost completely. The builder understands this. So does every family living beneath these roofs. Maintenance is simply another part of life. Nothing remains strong forever without gentle care. As the afternoon continues, merchants begin preparing for the quieter hours before evening. A man selling pottery wipes fine dust from the surfaces of his bowls and jars. Another rearranges woven baskets filled with onions and garlic. The vegetables glow softly in the warm light. Nearby, bundles of fresh herbs release their pleasant scent whenever someone walks past. There is no shouting to attract customers. No hurried bargaining. Most people know one another already. They know whose bread is especially good. They know which potter makes sturdy water jars. They know whose woven mats last for many years. Trust has grown slowly over time. Reputation travels quietly through repeated experience. A merchant earns confidence one honest sale after another. Children pass through the marketplace carrying small errands from their families. One boy carefully balances a loaf of bread wrapped in linen. A little girl carries several onions tucked inside a woven basket. They greet familiar adults along the way. Nearly everyone knows their names. The village is large enough for many families, yet small enough that faces become familiar. This familiarity creates another kind of predictability. People rarely feel alone. Someone always notices if a neighbor has become ill. Someone remembers when an elderly man needs help repairing a wall. Someone offers an extra loaf if another family's oven has gone cold. Community grows quietly through countless small kindnesses. No single act creates it. Years do. On the river, the afternoon breeze freshens just enough to fill the square sail of a small trading boat. The linen cloth catches the wind gently. The boat begins moving with graceful ease across the water. The sailor makes only tiny adjustments to the steering oar. There is no need for constant correction. The Nile has guided boats like this for thousands of journeys. The current and the wind often work together. The sailor has learned to trust both. He watches the shoreline drift slowly past. Palm groves. Fields. Mud-brick homes. Children waving from the riverbank. Fishermen lifting their nets. Everything feels familiar. Even travelers who move between villages seldom leave the embrace of the river for very long. The Nile connects nearly every part of their world. Its waters carry grain, pottery, linen, stories, and news from one community to another. Yet even as goods travel, the rhythm remains remarkably similar everywhere along its banks. Morning begins with bread. Fields welcome workers. The afternoon invites slower movement. Evening gathers families together again. Village after village follows the same dependable pattern. Perhaps that is why ancient Egypt could feel so predictable. Not because nothing ever changed. Children grew older. Parents became grandparents. Homes were repaired. New boats replaced old ones. Fields shifted with the flood. Life continued to move. But it moved gently. Like the river itself. Always forward. Rarely hurried. Never forgetting the path it had followed for generations. The afternoon sun now leans just slightly toward the western sky. The harsh brilliance begins to soften almost imperceptibly. Long shadows slowly prepare to return. The air carries the first quiet promise of evening. People notice this without looking upward. They simply feel it. Another familiar day is gently making its way toward another peaceful sunset beside the faithful Nile, where the ordinary moments of countless lives continue weaving together into the calm, enduring story of ancient Egypt. The afternoon slowly gives way to the gentle promise of evening. The change is so gradual that no one can point to the exact moment when it begins. The sunlight loses a little of its bright white color and becomes warmer, touching the mudbrick walls with soft shades of gold. Shadows, which had almost disappeared beneath the midday sun, begin stretching across the narrow lanes once again. The village seems to breathe a little more easily. The hottest hours have passed. People straighten their backs after long hours of work. Hands that have spent the day carrying baskets, guiding plows, shaping clay, or writing careful lines upon papyrus pause for just a moment. There is still work to do. There is always work to do. But now the air feels kinder. Along the western edge of the fields, a farmer walks slowly beside a row of barley. He does not hurry. Instead, he lets his eyes move across every part of the crop. He notices a small patch where the plants are shorter than the rest. He kneels quietly. The soil feels dry. Tomorrow morning, before the heat grows strong, he will guide a little more water toward this place. There is no frustration in this discovery. Fields are always asking for attention. That is simply their nature. The farmer has long ago accepted that caring for the land is never truly finished. Every day offers another small task. Every season offers another lesson. This steady conversation between people and the earth has continued for generations. The land speaks through growing plants, moist soil, and changing water. People answer with patient hands. Nearby, an elderly man walks more slowly than the younger workers. His steps are careful, measured by many years beneath the Egyptian sun. He carries only a small bundle of reeds gathered from the riverbank. Years ago he might have carried enough for an entire cart. Now he gathers only what he needs. His work has changed with age. No one expects him to labor as he once did. Instead, he spends much of his time repairing baskets, weaving mats, and teaching younger family members the quiet skills that require experience more than strength. As he reaches home, two grandchildren hurry toward him. One takes the bundle of reeds without being asked. The other opens the simple wooden gate leading into the family courtyard. These small gestures have become part of everyday life. Respect is rarely announced. It appears in ordinary actions. The old man smiles gently. Very few words are exchanged. None are needed. Inside the courtyard, the evening preparations have already begun. A young woman pours grain into a large grinding stone. The familiar rhythm returns. Forward. Back. Forward. Back. The sound echoes softly against the courtyard walls. It has echoed here for many years. Perhaps her mother once stood in exactly the same place. Perhaps her grandmother before that. The grinding stone itself has witnessed countless mornings and evenings. Its surface has slowly worn smooth beneath thousands upon thousands of careful movements. Each handful of flour represents not only food for the coming meal but also another link in an unbroken chain of daily routine. The flour drifts into a waiting bowl like pale desert dust. A nearby child reaches out with curious fingers. A tiny white mark appears across the end of his nose. His older sister laughs quietly before brushing it away. Their mother smiles without stopping her work. Moments like these are small. They pass almost unnoticed. Yet they become the memories that quietly fill a lifetime. Not every memory is made during great celebrations. Many are born while bread is being prepared. Across the village, smoke begins rising once again from clay ovens. Each thin column climbs into the cooling sky before slowly disappearing. The scent of baking bread spreads through the streets. Warm, earthy, comforting. Mixed with it comes the smell of roasting onions, crushed herbs, and lentils simmering inside clay pots. The evening meal rarely changes very much. No one expects rich feasts at the end of an ordinary day. Instead, families welcome familiar food prepared with patient care. The first fresh loaf emerges from the oven. Its crust crackles softly as cooler air touches its surface. Steam escapes through a small split in the top. The baker lifts it carefully using a wooden paddle polished smooth from years of use. He places it upon a woven mat to cool. Soon another loaf follows. Then another. Customers begin arriving quietly. Most know exactly how much bread they need. The baker already knows many of them by name. He recognizes their footsteps before they reach the doorway. Such familiarity grows naturally after years spent serving the same neighbors. Trust, like bread, is made a little at a time. Along the riverbank, fishermen return one by one. The afternoon breeze has carried them gently across the Nile. Now they guide their small boats toward the shore. The wooden hulls touch the muddy bank with soft sounds. Ropes are tied. Nets are lifted. Today's catch is examined. Some fish are large. Others are quite small. All are useful. Nothing is wasted if it can nourish a family. One fisherman carefully washes his net before hanging it across a wooden frame. The water drips steadily back into the river. Tomorrow morning the net will be dry and ready once more. Leaving it tangled would create unnecessary work later. So he takes time now. Ancient Egyptian life is filled with these quiet moments of preparation. Tomorrow begins long before tomorrow arrives. A tool cleaned today is ready at dawn. A repaired sandal prevents trouble on tomorrow's journey. Grain stored carefully this season becomes bread many months later. The future is built from ordinary acts completed with patience. Not far away, a herd of goats returns from grazing. A young shepherd walks behind them carrying a simple staff. He hardly needs to guide the animals. They already know the way home. Day after day they have followed the same paths between village and pasture. The goats recognize familiar gaits. They recognize familiar voices. Even the animals seem comforted by routine. One small goat pauses to nibble at a patch of grass beside the path. The shepherd smiles and waits. There is no reason to hurry. The goat soon rejoins the others. The journey continues. Within the village, craftsmen begin putting away their tools. The potter places newly shaped vessels beneath a shelter where they will dry slowly overnight. The carpenter gathers wood shavings into a basket. Nothing useful is discarded. Even small pieces may help start tomorrow's fire. The stonemason brushes pale dust from his work before covering unfinished pieces with cloth. The scribe rolls completed papyrus sheets carefully and ties them with narrow strips of linen. Each person leaves work in good order. Tomorrow should begin as smoothly as today is ending. This habit of careful preparation quietly supports every part of Egyptian life. As the light grows softer, children become more energetic again. The heat no longer presses upon them. They gather in open spaces between homes. Some draw shapes in the dust with smooth sticks. Others toss little pebbles in simple games whose rules have likely been passed from older brothers and sisters for many generations. A few run toward the river's edge, stopping where parents have taught them it is safe. Their laughter rises briefly into the evening air. Nearby adults continue talking while keeping watchful eyes upon them. Children are allowed freedom, but never without quiet care. An elderly woman sits beneath the shade of a date palm weaving another basket. The reeds bend easily in her experienced hands. She does not count the strands. She no longer needs to. Her fingers remember. The basket grows slowly upward. Round. Even. Strong. She pauses only occasionally to glance toward the children playing nearby. One little girl wanders over and sits beside her. Without speaking, the grandmother places a few reeds into the child's hands. The little girl tries to copy the movements. Her first attempt slips apart. The older woman gently straightens the reeds and begins again. Neither becomes discouraged. Learning is expected to take time. Patience is part of every craft. Across the fields, the sunlight now falls at a lower angle. Palm trees cast long shadows over irrigation canals. The water reflects both sky and trees together, making it difficult to tell where one ends and the other begins. A gentle breeze creates tiny ripples that shimmer like moving glass. Birds begin returning to their nests among the reeds. Their calls become softer than they were during the busy morning. The land itself seems to prepare for rest. Farmers gather their tools. Oxen are led back toward shaded shelters. Donkeys carry lighter loads now than they did earlier in the day. Even their footsteps sound slower. Satisfied. Measured. The work has been honest. That is enough. Far above, the sky slowly begins changing once more. The brilliant blue softens into pale gold near the horizon. Soon it will become orange. Then rose. Then deep violet. This transformation happens every evening. No one is surprised by it. Yet almost everyone notices it, if only for a moment. The sky keeps its promises. The river keeps flowing. The fields continue growing. The ovens continue baking. Families continue gathering. The quiet certainty of these repeating patterns surrounds every ordinary life in ancient Egypt. And as another peaceful evening settles gently over the Nile Valley, the familiar rhythm that has guided countless generations carries everyone forward, one calm breath, one simple task, and one unhurried sunset at a time. The sun settles lower toward the western horizon. Its light grows softer with every passing moment, spreading across the Nile in long ribbons of gold that gently drift with the current. The bright heat of midday now feels like a distant memory. In its place comes a welcome coolness that moves slowly through the valley. People do not stop working the instant the air becomes comfortable. Instead, the pace changes. Movements become slower. Voices become quieter. The day begins folding itself neatly toward its end. A farmer lifts the last bundle of reeds onto a small wooden cart. He wipes his hands on the edge of his linen kilt before taking one last look across the field. The rows of grain stand quietly in the fading light. Nothing more can be done today. The earth has received its water. The tools have done their work. The crops will continue growing through the night without him. There is comfort in leaving some work for tomorrow. Ancient Egyptians understood that no person could finish everything in a single day. Life itself was not arranged that way. The fields asked for steady care, not endless effort. As he begins the walk home, he passes neighbors returning from their own work. A potter carries an empty basket that had held damp clay earlier that morning. A fisherman balances folded nets across one shoulder. A young shepherd walks beside a flock of sheep moving almost silently along the familiar path. Everyone seems to know exactly where they belong. No one gives directions. The roads have been walked so often that even in the fading light, the feet seem to remember them. Dust rises gently beneath each step before settling again. The evening breeze smooths away many of the footprints almost as soon as they appear. Along the riverbank, women kneel beside the water washing linen garments. The river reflects the changing colors of the sky while the cloth moves rhythmically beneath careful hands. Dip. Rub. Rinse. Lift. The movements repeat with quiet certainty. Nearby, children splash at the very edge of the shallow water under the watchful eyes of their parents. Their laughter mingles with the soft sound of ripples against the shore. One little boy carefully floats a tiny boat made from bundled reeds. He watches it drift only a short distance before gently catching it again. Again and again he repeats the game. Tomorrow he will probably do exactly the same. Many years from now, perhaps his own children will launch little reed boats into these same waters. The Nile quietly welcomes every generation. Not far away, several young men help pull a fishing boat farther onto the bank. The wooden hull slides over smooth logs placed beneath it. The work requires everyone to move together. One pushes. Another pulls. Another steadies the side. Their breathing falls naturally into the same rhythm. The boat rises just enough to rest safely above the night's water line. Tomorrow, before sunrise, it will return to the river. Its journey today has ended. Like the people who built it, the boat also has its daily routine. In the village, the marketplace begins its slow transformation. Throughout the day it has been filled with quiet exchanges. Now baskets are covered with woven lids. Clay jars are sealed. Bundles of herbs are tied neatly together. Merchants count what remains. Nothing is rushed. There is no loud announcement that trading has ended. People simply know. The lowering sun is enough. A merchant carefully sweeps dust from the entrance to his small stall. Tomorrow morning the wind will bring more dust. He knows this. Still, he sweeps. Not because the dust will stay away forever. Because keeping things in order is part of each day's work. Many tasks in ancient Egypt are repeated endlessly. Sweeping. Grinding. Weaving. Repairing. Watering. Counting. At first glance these jobs might seem ordinary. Yet together they create something remarkable. They create reliability. A clean workshop is ready for tomorrow. A repaired basket carries tomorrow's harvest. A sharpened knife prepares tomorrow's meal. Small acts quietly support larger ones. Nearby, a scribe finishes his final record before evening. He blows gently across the fresh ink. The papyrus rests on the low wooden table until the writing has dried completely. He rolls the sheet carefully. The linen cord wraps around it with practiced ease. He places it beside many others. Together they hold the memory of harvests, deliveries, and daily work. The scribe knows that tomorrow another scroll will begin. There will always be another list. Another shipment. Another account to record. The endless rhythm comforts him. His work has purpose because the world continues in an orderly way. As the streets become quieter, pleasant smells drift from nearly every home. Fresh bread. Roasted onions. Beans simmering slowly in clay pots. Garlic crushed with herbs. Sometimes the rich aroma of fish cooking over glowing coals. The scents blend together as they float through the cooling air. Anyone walking through the village could almost find home with closed eyes simply by recognizing familiar smells. Inside one small courtyard, a family prepares the evening meal together. An older daughter tears warm bread into smaller pieces. Her younger brother carries water from a large clay jar into simple cups. Their mother stirs a pot slowly while their father repairs the leather strap of a sandal by the fading light. No one treats these as separate activities. They happen together. Conversation flows naturally around the work. Someone remembers seeing an unusually large bird beside the river. Someone else mentions that the barley looks healthy this year. The youngest child proudly announces that he helped carry kindling earlier in the day. Everyone listens. Even small achievements matter. They are part of becoming useful. As darkness slowly approaches, lamps begin appearing one by one throughout the village. Each flame is small. Each casts only a gentle circle of light. Seen from a distance, the village begins to resemble the night sky above it. Tiny points of warm light scattered across the earth. The lamps do not chase away all the darkness. They simply make enough light for families to share the evening together. That is all they need. In another home, an elderly grandfather sits near the doorway while several grandchildren gather around him. His hands rest upon a walking stick polished smooth by many years of use. He speaks softly, not telling stories of mighty kings or distant battles. Instead, he remembers ordinary things. The flood that came a little higher one year. The season when dates ripened especially well. The old fisherman who could repair any net. The baker whose bread always smelled sweeter than anyone else's. The children listen carefully. These stories are not famous. Yet they preserve another kind of history. The history of everyday lives. The history of neighbors. The history of quiet work repeated faithfully through the passing years. As the stars begin appearing overhead, people instinctively lift their eyes for a moment. The same stars watched their parents. The same stars watched the generations before them. Nothing about the night sky feels unfamiliar. Its dependable return is another gentle promise. Tomorrow morning, before those stars fade, grinding stones will begin singing their quiet song once more. Boats will return to the river. Farmers will walk into the fields. Potters will shape fresh clay. Children will carry water in small jars. The village will awaken exactly as it has awakened for countless mornings. Predictability does not make life feel empty. Quite the opposite. It fills each day with quiet confidence. People know where they belong. They know what tomorrow will ask of them. They know that honest work, shared meals, patient hands, and familiar faces will greet another sunrise. Above the village, the sky deepens into a rich blue filled with steadily brightening stars. The warm stones slowly release the day's heat into the cool evening air. The Nile continues its endless journey through the darkness, carrying reflected starlight upon its calm surface. And all across the valley, families settle into another peaceful evening, wrapped in the comforting rhythm of a world that rarely hurries, rarely surprises, and almost always keeps its gentle promises. Night settles completely across the Nile Valley. The last glow of sunset fades beyond the western hills, and the sky becomes a deep blanket of dark blue filled with stars. Their light is gentle rather than bright, enough to outline the palms along the river and the flat roofs of the village homes. The day's warmth still lingers inside the stones. Mud-brick walls slowly release the heat they gathered beneath the afternoon sun. The air feels pleasant now. Neither cold nor hot. Simply calm. The village grows quieter with each passing moment. Doors made of wood and woven reeds are closed for the night. Clay jars are covered to keep their contents clean. The last cooking fires become glowing beds of red coals. Thin streams of smoke drift upward before disappearing into the darkness. A dog stretches beside a doorway and circles twice before lying down. Nearby, a cat slips silently across a courtyard wall, pausing only long enough to listen for the faint rustle of a mouse hidden somewhere among baskets and stored grain. The night belongs to different creatures than the day. Yet even now, nothing feels hurried. Everything moves with quiet purpose. Inside one modest home, a family prepares for sleep. The youngest child is already struggling to keep his eyes open. He leans against his mother's shoulder while she folds a linen cloth that had dried outside earlier in the afternoon. His father checks the simple wooden latch on the door before placing a small oil lamp in the center of the room. Its flame dances softly. The light reaches the smooth walls, leaving gentle shadows that sway almost like slow-moving water. No one speaks loudly. The quiet of the night naturally encourages softer voices. An older daughter carefully rolls up a woven sleeping mat that had been used during the evening meal. Soon she unrolls it again in another part of the room where the family will sleep. The mat has become slightly smoother over the years. Thousands of nights have pressed its reeds into gentle curves. It carries the faint scent of dry grass warmed by many summers. Simple things become familiar through long use. They ask for little. They offer comfort in return. Some families choose to sleep inside their homes. Others climb the short stairways leading to flat rooftops. There, the evening breeze moves more freely. The air is cooler. The stars seem closer. A grandfather slowly climbs the worn steps, one careful foot after another. His grandson follows behind carrying a rolled sleeping mat. When they reach the roof, they spread the mat side by side. Neither says very much. There is no need. The sky provides enough company. The old man lies back with his hands folded across his chest. The child does the same. Above them stretches a sky that seems endless. The stars shine with quiet certainty. Night after night they follow familiar paths. The old man has watched these stars since he was no older than the boy beside him. His own grandfather once pointed toward the same bright lights overhead. Some names have been remembered. Others have slowly faded from memory. But the stars themselves remain. Constant. Reliable. Steady. Their faithful return each evening quietly reflects the rhythm of life below. Nothing appears rushed. Nothing seems out of place. Far beyond the village, the desert rests beneath the moonlight. During the day it seemed harsh and almost blinding beneath the sun. Now it appears peaceful. Its dunes glow softly beneath the pale light. The wind moves gently across their surfaces, carrying tiny grains of sand from one place to another. Even the desert changes slowly. Its hills shift little by little over many years. Patience shapes the landscape as surely as it shapes the people living beside the Nile. The river continues flowing through the darkness. Its surface reflects the moon in long shimmering ribbons that break apart whenever a fish rises briefly before slipping beneath the water once more. The sound is small. Just a gentle splash. The ripples spread outward in widening circles. Then the surface grows calm again. Along the banks, papyrus reeds sway with each passing breeze. Their whispering voices blend with the steady murmur of flowing water. Anyone lying awake nearby would hear these sounds almost without noticing them. They become part of the night's quiet music. Not far downstream, a small boat remains tied securely to a wooden post. The rope pulls gently as the current tugs against it. Creak. Pause. Creak. Pause. The rhythm continues through the night. The boat rocks almost imperceptibly. Tomorrow, before dawn, its owner will untie the same rope and begin another day upon the river. Tonight the boat simply rests. Even tools deserve rest after faithful service. Back in the village, an elderly woman remains awake a little longer than the others. She sits near the fading light of an oil lamp repairing a linen tunic. The tear is small. Her needle moves slowly through the cloth. Each stitch is almost invisible. She could leave the repair until morning. Instead, she finishes it now. Tomorrow will already have enough work of its own. When the final stitch is complete, she runs her hand gently across the fabric. Satisfied, she folds the garment neatly and places it inside a wooden chest. The lamp flickers once as she carefully blows across the flame. Darkness quietly fills the room. Outside, the village is now almost completely still. From time to time, someone coughs softly in a nearby house. A baby stirs before settling once more. A donkey shifts its weight inside a simple shelter. The sounds are gentle. They never disturb the peace. Rather, they remind anyone awake that life continues quietly all around them. No village is ever completely silent. It simply breathes more slowly at night. In another home, a potter dreams after a long day at his wheel. His hands, roughened by clay and water, finally rest. Tomorrow they will shape more bowls, more jars, more simple vessels that will carry grain, oil, water, and wine. He does not think of his work as creating something extraordinary. He thinks only of making useful things well. Across the lane, a farmer sleeps deeply after hours spent tending his fields. The muscles in his shoulders still ache faintly from lifting tools and guiding water through narrow canals. His body knows honest exhaustion. Morning will ask for strength again. Tonight it asks only for sleep. A scribe sleeps nearby. His fingers, stained lightly with ink despite repeated washing, rest quietly beside him. Tomorrow another blank sheet of papyrus will wait upon his table. Another careful record will begin. The work never truly ends. Neither does it become overwhelming. It simply continues, one measured day after another. A baker rests while tomorrow's grain waits patiently inside clay jars. A fisherman sleeps while the Nile carries moonlight toward the distant sea. A shepherd dreams while his flock lies safely together beneath the stars. A weaver rests while neatly wound thread waits beside the loom. Every occupation pauses together. The entire village shares the same rhythm. Work. Rest. Morning. Evening. Flood. Harvest. Season after season. Year after year. As the night grows deeper, the cool air settles over the valley. The scent of damp earth rises gently from the riverbanks. Palm leaves rustle softly overhead. The stars continue their slow journey across the heavens, watched only by the occasional traveler or watchman still awake. For everyone else, sleep comes naturally. Not because life has been easy, but because it has been full. Hands have worked. Fields have been tended. Bread has been baked. Water has been carried. Children have learned. Neighbors have greeted one another. Simple tasks have quietly become another ordinary day. Perhaps this is one of the deepest reasons ancient Egypt felt so predictable. Its people did not expect every day to bring something entirely new. Instead, they found meaning in returning to the same familiar duties with patience and care. They trusted the river. They trusted the seasons. They trusted the knowledge passed down by those who came before them. And in return, those steady rhythms gave shape to their lives. The predictability was not dull. It was comforting. Like the steady current of the Nile. Like the dependable warmth of the morning sun. Like the smell of fresh bread rising from a clay oven. like the familiar sound of sandals brushing against dusty paths before sunrise. These ordinary moments quietly joined together, day after day, until they became the foundation of one of history's longest-lasting civilizations. Above it all, the stars continue shining over the sleeping valley, while the patient Nile flows onward through the darkness, carrying another peaceful night toward another gentle dawn that is already, slowly, making its way across ancient Egypt. The eastern horizon is still hidden beneath the quiet embrace of night. For a little while longer, ancient Egypt sleeps. The Nile continues its endless journey, never asking for praise, never asking to be noticed. It simply flows, just as it has for countless generations, carrying cool water past silent reeds, resting boats, and villages wrapped in darkness. The warm stones of the day have almost given up their heat. The evening breeze has become softer now, brushing lightly across rooftops where families rest beneath the stars. The oil lamps have long since gone dark. The ovens are cool. The workshops are still. The fields wait patiently for the first light. Somewhere in the distance, a fisherman sleeps beside folded nets that will greet another morning. A farmer rests after another honest day beneath the sun. A potter dreams with traces of clay still beneath his fingernails. A scribe sleeps peacefully while neatly rolled papyrus waits for tomorrow's careful writing. Children, who spent the day laughing beside the river and helping with small chores, breathe slowly beneath woven blankets. Grandparents, who have watched many floods come and go, rest knowing that the familiar rhythm of the Nile will greet another sunrise. Nothing asks to be hurried. Nothing struggles to become something else. The river is content to be a river. The fields are content to grow one season at a time. The stars are content to cross the sky in their quiet, unchanging paths. And the people, for all their hard work and weary muscles, have found comfort in a life built from steady mornings, familiar afternoons, peaceful evenings, and gentle nights. Perhaps that quiet rhythm is the true wonder of ancient Egypt. Not only the temples that still stand against the desert sky. Not only the pyramids that have watched thousands of years pass in silence. But the millions of ordinary days that came before them. The bread baked before dawn. The sandals leaving fresh prints in soft river mud. The careful hands repairing a fishing net. The slow turning of a potter's wheel. The whisper of reeds beside calm water. The sound of grain falling into a clay jar. The laughter of children drifting through dusty streets before fading into evening. These moments were never carved into stone. Yet they were the heartbeat of the civilization. One quiet day became another. One season gently followed the last. The Nile rose. The Nile fell. Seeds became grain. Grain became bread. Children became parents. Parents became grandparents. And the gentle rhythm continued, almost without interruption, for centuries. Now the valley grows even quieter. The breeze slows. The stars seem to shine a little more softly. The river reflects them like scattered pieces of silver drifting across the water. Even the insects hidden among the reeds seem to sing more gently now. If you listen closely, there is almost nothing left to hear except the calm breathing of a sleeping world. Imagine yourself sitting beside the Nile for just a few peaceful moments. The earth beneath you is still warm from the day. The cool air brushes gently across your face. The scent of fresh water, damp soil, and distant palms fills the night. Across the river, dark silhouettes of trees stand perfectly still beneath the stars. There is nowhere you need to go. Nothing you need to finish. No fields waiting to be tended. No boats waiting to be untied. No grain left to grind. Only the quiet river. The gentle wind. The endless sky. and the comforting knowledge that tomorrow, just as it has for thousands of years, the sun will rise slowly over the Nile once again. The birds will greet the morning. The boats will drift from the shore. Fresh bread will warm the air. Sandals will press softly into dusty paths. Life will continue with the same calm rhythm that has carried generations safely through the passing seasons. But for now, the river flows. The stars shine. The village sleeps. And the ancient world rests peacefully beneath the quiet Egyptian night. May the calm waters of the Nile carry your thoughts gently away. May the warm desert breeze grow softer with every breath. And may the peaceful rhythm of this ancient land stay with you as you drift into deep, quiet, and restful sleep.